Bonjour, 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 and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. Today's video is gonna be more underrated tarot decks. More because I've already done a video all about underrated tarot decks that are sold mass market, meaning they are more affordable, they're easier to find, you can shop them at your local bookshop, Amazon, Book Depository, all of that good stuff. That, in my opinion, are underrated. They might not be seen as much, they might not be shown as much. We don't see them very often used in online readings, pick a card readings. They might not really be shown that much on TarotTube because they're a little bit older, and so since then there's been other decks that have come on. And they just deserve a little bit of love. So like I said, I've done this video a year ago. I had shown already some decks that, in my opinion, were underrated mass market tarot decks. You seem to have really liked it, and I wanted to do an updated version showing you even more underrated mass market tarot decks. As you might know if you watch my videos, I have very eclectic taste, so hopefully there should be something here for everyone, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it. So if it is your first time here, I just want to say a huge welcome. My name is Marine, I'm a French tarot reader and a lover of everything tarot, oracle and self-empowerment related. I love talking about tarot and oracle decks on my channel. It's something that is a huge passion of mine. I also love sharing empowering tarot readings, pick a card readings that are very much along the lines of helping you to help yourself. So if you'd like to see any of those things on your timeline, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, all of that good stuff. I would love to have you join the tide. All of the names of the decks are going to be in the description box below, along with my socials, so my Instagram, TikTok, etc. if you want to hang out with me on other platforms. And without further ado, let's get into my underrated mass market tarot decks, part 2. So like I said in the intro, the tarot decks I'm going to show you today, they are mass market. So that means they are usually much easier to find and much more affordable than indie tarot decks. And of course, this is my humble opinion. I might find them underrated. Maybe to you they're your favorite deck ever, and so you don't consider them underrated. This is very personal opinion. You're allowed to disagree. You're welcome to let me know what in your opinions are underrated mass market tarot decks in the comments. Why did I pick those particular decks for today's video as underrated, as underdogs kind of vibes, is purely because I have noticed from the videos I've watched, either like I was saying, tarot readings, all sorts on social media, Instagram, etc. They don't tend to be shown as much, in my opinion. I think some of them are older, so of course there's so many decks coming out now. I've said this before, but a year in tarot deck is just like dog year. There are so many decks that come out every year that decks age very quickly, unfortunately. It is that kind of consumerism trend that's going on, so maybe some older decks are not getting as much love as they deserve, because to me they really deserve their moment in the light. So the first tarot deck I want to mention today is a Hanson and Roberts tarot, illustrated by Mary Hanson Roberts. Why is this? I think this is by US Games, by the way. Yeah, US Games. So why is this underrated? In my opinion, this is a deck that was, I think it came out in the 90s, either 80s or 90s. You can still find it for very affordable. It's still in print, but this is part to me of those older decks that came out 70s, 80s, 90s. We have the Morgan Greer, we have the Aquarian Tarot. Here are the backs, by the way. They are very popular, those ones. And to me, the Hanson Roberts Tarot is in that same wave, but unfortunately for it, I feel like it doesn't get as much love as the Morgan Greer and the Aquarian, even though it's a really great little deck. First off, the size is smaller than a tarot deck. It is more like playing cards, so I find that it's very easy to like take it around with you. It's very portable. As you can see, you have different languages on the cards. For all of my viewers out there for who English is not their first language, like me, you might find your own language on those cards, and that's really cool. And this is just a quirky little funky deck. What makes this deck great, I think, is obviously you're gonna see it's an RWS clone. I mean, not exactly, but very heavily inspired by the RWS. But the facial expressions are absolutely gorgeous. Look at this High Priestess. She looks so thoughtful and so deeply meditating, and there's a lot going on with her mind, and sometimes the high priestess can seem cold, but I feel like she's feeling a lot this one. She looks like she's going through something. So the facial expression on this one are gorgeous. I love this Queen of Wands. She looks so joyous. Deck overall gives them very much a fairy tale kind of vibe, because I feel like there are some medieval fairy tale inspired like costumes and castles and backgrounds. I love this inclusion of a Merlin type figure in the Seven of Cups. I think that's gorgeous. So it's not just an RWS clone, it definitely does its own thing, but it's just one of those older decks that I feel deserves more love. And let me tell you, it is such a sharp shooter. It reads so straight on, and I have found that for most of the older decks that I have used. I find that decks that have been, and again, that's my personal opinion, you're entitled to disagree, but I find that decks that have been around for a lot longer, they tend to be a lot more direct and straightforward with their messages, decks like the Aquarian Tarot, etc. I believe that along the way, with all of the readings that have been done by so many people, the deck as an egregore kind of has gathered the energy of all those readings and has become wiser over the years. This is probably why so many people love to read with the RWS and with Marseille, etc. Not saying that you can't read really well with modern deck, because hello, have you seen my channel? I get modern decks every other day and I love them. I'm just saying that with those type of older decks, I have found that they speak very clearly. Like I don't have to think about what's going on. Clear as day, super straight, super to the point, and I love that for it. Let's move on to my second pick. I have 10 in total, by the way. I didn't plan it, but it turned out that it was 10 decks. And I feel like that was a good coincidence. I like it. It's a round number, so I'm happy with that. Tarot Nefertari by Lo Scarabeo. 2013. So again, it's not old. 2013 is not that long ago, but like I said, tarot years are like dog years. I edged my copy in black, by the way, but I think this is underrated because it's gorgeous and I feel like it deserves a lot of love because it is shiny. And where are all my magpies out? Comment down below all of my magpies out there, because I'm definitely part of the magpie crew. If something is shiny, I'm already like, yes, add to cart. No, but seriously, this is a really great Egyptian inspired deck that I find, again, a really great reader. Not only is it beautiful, obviously, I mean, again, look at this. What do you call that? It's not gold, it's gold foiling, right? It has a bit of a texture to it. Really beautiful. I love the hieroglyphic, is that how you say it? With my horrendous French accent. I'm hoping I make sense. I love that the deck uses that particular art style because it makes it even more Egyptian feeling to me. Of course, it being mass market Lo Scarabeo, you expect that regular cardstock that's very easily to shuffle. So for it's easy to shuffle. You've got different titles. The guidebook is interesting. I will say the one thing I wish this did is that I wish the guidebook included the divinities that were included in the deck, because there are some. We see some members of the Egyptian pantheon, from Egyptian mythology. We see Horus and Isis, and we see Ra, and so I wish that the guidebook included that. As someone who enjoys Egyptian mythology, I have kind of done my own research and I have looked for the symbols, etc. But it will not, you'll have to do that on yourself. It will not tell you that. However, as you can see, it's still very much RWS. But just so you know, my preference is, for now anyway, is RWS inspired decks. That's what you're gonna see reflected here. We see Newt, for example, the goddess Nut, who represents, you know, the sky. A lot of little hints of Egyptian mythology. It's beautiful and I really enjoy using it. There's a lot of expensive Egyptian decks out there, and if you're looking for one that gives you that feel for quite affordable, then this one is easy to find. I didn't mention the guidebook, but as you might know, Lo Scarabeo guidebooks, they come in different languages. We usually have at least English, Italian, sometimes French, sometimes German, but you'll have English at least. And here we have a little spread, and it's usually like a couple of keywords, or for the majors arcana it might be a couple of sentences for each of the suits. Basic for the guidebook, unfortunately. Not the best Los Scarabeo guidebooks. I will show you a better one later on. But honestly, for me, what makes this deck amazing is the fact that it's beautiful and shiny. Because let's be real, sometimes that is everything you need in life. Just something that makes you feel happy because it's beautiful. Okay, let's move on to another Los Scarabeo deck. We have the traditional manga tarot. Again, this is being Los Scarabeo. It is easy to find, it's fairly affordable. The guidebook is still in different languages. And this one, again, is, you know, very much straight to the point, a couple of keywords. So not my favorite Los Scarabeo guidebook, but they may be my favorite Los Scarabeo deck in terms of the artwork. I love this artwork very much, and if you're looking for a fantasy manga looking deck that is affordable and easy to find, I would absolutely recommend this one. Because there are a few manga inspired decks out there, I feel like this one has gone under the radar. There are a couple ones that seem to be more current and more, not more current, but more recent and more popular, but this one to me is the best looking one. I'm not a pro of manga. I used to read them when I was a teenager, but I'm not up to date anymore. Ever since I've become an adult, I've kind of fell off the bandwagon, but I really enjoyed it when I was a teenager, and so that was part of the appeal. What called me with this deck more so is the fantasy feel and the artwork and the colors, the light work, and that fantasy feel really makes me happy because that is a huge part of my aesthetic. Anything that is set in another world where there could be some kind of magic, I'm here for it. I'm just like, please take me away from this dying planet, I'm over it. Anyone else? So I'm joking, but I feel like this deck not only is beautiful, but actually the way that the artwork is done, who by the way the artist is, I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that because I would just be butchering it. So here is the name of the artist. Especially with the light work, look, there's often time in each card little drops of lights or shadow, which really gives you your eyes something to like focus on. This is again RWS inspired. Look at, see all the light here? It almost feels like those beautiful little spirit lights that just illuminate the cards. I really enjoy that. So again, it's RWS inspired, so personally for me it's super easy to read. I have read a ton for this deck. I have used it in pick a card readings many times. I've used it for friends. One of my favorite cards of the deck, the Death card, is a crone, and I love that because for me it makes a lot of sense that the Death would be represented as an elder person. So one of my favorite cards of the deck. Again, little lights here. It looks like these little characters' antlers are almost connected to something like spirit or something, and they look so happy. It's not vibrant colors, it is more subdued, but I enjoy it. It feels very like fall and autumn colors when you look at it like this, and I don't have fall or autumn where I live because I live on a tropical island where it's pretty much summer, so I like to tap into that fall energy through the colors of this deck. And yeah, for me, super underrated. I don't really see it shown a lot, and I think it deserves love because it's amazing. Look at the King of Wands. I don't know what this creature is, but I'm here for it. It's strange and different, and it's like a fish with legs. Maybe this was us before we became humans. And I like that. Our great grandfather. Let's move on to a Fournier deck. So Fournier, they are Spanish based, I believe. The one I want to show you today is called Tarot de El Dios de los Tres. So again, this is mass market. You can find it fairly easily on Amazon, Book Depository, your local bookshops and witchy shops and all of that. Fournier decks are usually smaller than your average tarot decks. So if I compare it to, just so you can see, the traditional tarot I've just shown you, the cards are a little bit smaller on Fournier, and I actually enjoy that because it makes it easy to carry and everything. Here are the backs for this. which are everything. I love this deck very much. I've shown this not that long ago in my Good Mood decks, which if you've not seen yet, I highly suggest you do. Shameless plug, but I'll leave a card somewhere where I share with you the decks that put me in a good mood. And there's been so many people doing VRs to this hashtag. That's awesome. I'm so happy. I actually want to do a VR to my own VR because I'm realizing I forgot many decks. So I might do that. Anyway, going back to the Tarot del Dios de los Tres, I believe the artist originally is a tattoo artist or a graphic designer or something like that from when I researched. And this is a very peepish deck. So if you don't know what peepish decks means, if you're new to tarot, it means that, for example, for the Four of Cups, instead of seeing a whole scene, you're gonna see 4 cups, except this one doesn't just give you 4 cups, it gives you also some symbolism, some animals, sometimes reference to certain mythology, like Hindu mythology, etc., that gives you something to go off of. So you don't have to just go off the numerology of a pep deck, you can also go off the symbolism. And of course, if you're familiar with Marseille or with Thoth or even with RWS, you could always pull in those knowledge with the underrated. I'm not sure, I don't really see it talked about that much. There are some genitalias, boop, so that might bother some people. It doesn't bother me really. This deck for me is underrated because, like I said, I don't see it often. I love the colors. It's bright, it's crazy, there's so much going on. This devil is like, there is so much going on. Sometimes you don't know where to look, and I enjoy that. Sometimes I enjoy a busy deck. Sometimes I enjoy something that's gonna shock me with color, shock me with energy. I love the energy. It feels very full of energy, full of character. It is a bit irreverent. This deck, like I said, there are some, naked people, there are some pop culture references, there's some references to different mythology, like Japanese or Hindu mythology. Very quirky and very cool. And if you're in the market for a pip deck that gives you more than just here's 9 cups on the 9 of cups, I would really suggest this, because this has been great for me to, when I want a pip deck, but I want something that gives me a little something, something that will spark my intuition. Sometimes it makes me laugh, sometimes I'm left confused, but it never leaves me feeling nothing. And I think that's what I like about it. It doesn't leave you indifferent. And I need that sometimes in my tarot decks, especially if I'm in a bit of a tarot rut and I'm a bit bored and I need a bit of a electroshock. Thank you so much to my beautiful friends who got this for me for my birthday. You're the best. The guidebook is in Spanish, English, French, Dutch and Portuguese, and it opens up like this. Forny decks I find gives you more, so there is more than just 1 or 2 keywords. Usually you'll get at least like a little bit of a sentence, and here we even have reverse meaning, which I think is quite cool. So, okay, we're halfway through. Moving on to the Phantasma Tarot by Paulina Fay. Why to me is this underrated is because Paulina Fay, you might know her Joie de Vivre, you might know her, I think it's called Spirit Song, you might know Pixiekins. Paulina Fay has done many different decks, and I feel like this one, which is, I believe, one of her most recent ones, is potentially less known than her other ones, which are very, very popular. Again, it might be because it's more recent, but this is one I very rarely see. I've never seen it used on tarot readings, for example, even though I see oftentimes the Joie de Vivre and the Spirit Song. So in terms of tarot readings video, I feel like it's her less well-known deck. It's US Games. Here are the backs. And the guidebook is all in English. It's a lot more actually in-depth than the Los Scarabeo, because for each of the cards you get a message, you get a keyword, you get a reversed message, reverse keywords, and this time you actually get a little bit of a text explaining some of the artistic choices. Not always, but most of the time it might explain some of the artistic choices, which I find helpful. Like on TarotTube it is talked about. I feel like I've seen my friend Niha, the Curated Shelf, talk about this not that long ago, but in terms of online tarot readings and Instagram, things like that, I have the impression that this deck is less shown than other Paulina Fay / Paulina Cassidy decks. same person. So as you can see, this is very busy, and this is why I'm so close to the camera, so you can really take it all in. This is fully Fae energy. It's in this magical world. It feels like storybook, childlike, very much books that you know you could see when you were a child, full of magical creatures, Fae creatures, fairies, and little forest creatures. The colors are very pastel and very pale, and normally that is not something I enjoy. Normally I'm very much for in-your-face color, vibrant, non-subtle. Like hello, have you seen my nails? You know my vibe, I'm not a very subtle person, so normally very subtle colors deck are not my favorite, but with this type of artwork that is very ethereal, very dreamlike, very much like you've stepped into a storybook or you've stepped into your dream, it works, it really does. I don't have any other Paulina Cassidy decks because I have not bonded with any of her other ones, like I've not kept them. This is the only one I've kept, and actually the only one I've managed to bond with and to read with, because I was part of those people that felt like that artwork was almost too busy, but this, because it built this whole world, this whole magical world, and it's very coherent, enjoy it, and I've managed to bond with it, and I find it wonderful for sparking your intuition, sparking your imagination, dream work. It's very sweet, soft deck. To me, it feels very like feminine energy, so I'm sure this could be a great hug deck for anyone who resonates with that particular energy. It feels very childlike as well, could be a great deck for inner child work, and it's just like very soft, and it's almost like a whisper. Everything about it, the colors, the line work, it feels like a whisper. It's not very loud. You have to take your time to hear what it has to say. You have to sit down. Yeah, it's not going to be shouting at you. Sometimes it's not going to be very clear what it's trying to say. You have to approach it almost like a little deer that you would find in the woods. You can't just run to the deer. It will go away and you'll scare the deer away. I feel like it's the same with this deck. You have to approach it gently and take your time with it in order to get that connection. But it is full of magic. Okay, moving on to the Kitty Kahani Tarot, I have the mass market German edition by Urania, but now this has come out mass market in English as well, so that's why I'm mentioning it. So you can find it on, again, all the websites and all of that. So here is the box. Originally this was an indie deck. It was picked up in German, which is when I got it, because I wanted this deck for so long, and then recently they've just come out with it in English, so that's awesome. The guidebook that I have is in German, obviously, but it's full of really wonderful information. There's so many good spreads, and so Google Translate really helped me to get the most out of it. So if you get this deck in English, definitely check out the guidebook. There's tons of interesting things here to look at. And now this one is for all of my lovers of an aesthetic that is more, first off, colorful, and second, very quirky. Here it's for all of my fellow weirdos out there, people who enjoy weird looking people that are blue and purple and pink and green. And this deck is full of strange little pineapples and rocks with heads on, and it's just a good vibe. It's a good vibe. Again, this was in my good mood video because it's a good mood. Every time I use this deck, I'm happy. It's very much RWS inspired, except there's a lot of little nuggets of wisdom hidden in there, the artist's own interpretation that gives that deck a really unique personality. Like, look at the tower. The person going through a tower moment is in the tower, and it looks like she's shedding her chrysalis or something. It looks like she's literally like, I've had enough of everyone and everything telling me what to do. I'm literally just gonna be starting new, and I'm creating my own tower moment. Like, I've had enough. And I think that's cool. Of humor, it's full of personality. This is definitely a deck I would go for if you're looking for something that's not gonna be too serious, in the sense of course you can do very serious readings with this, but it's the perfect epitome of it. Not everything has to be that deep. Tarot doesn't just have to be serious. It can be fun and serious. It can be deep and joyful. Just because it's going to give you profound messages doesn't mean it can't give it to you in with a bit of laughter, or with a bit of joy, or with a bit of lightheartedness. I feel like those two things can coexist and not cancel each other out. And for me, this is a perfect representation of that. I really enjoy this deck. I'm so happy that they have decided to pick this indie deck mass market because it's glorious. And next up, we have the Zombie Tarot. This is super underrated, not because it never gets talked about, because trust that around Halloween time, this deck is gonna be everywhere. But I am on a mission to convince people that this needs to come out outside of Halloween season, because this is actually not just a Halloween gimmicky type of deck. I feel like this is a brilliant also shadow work deck. It comes with a guidebook, which is really cool the way it's written. Everything is set up in this like vintage looking 60s, I would say, maybe 50s, 60s world, where there's a zombie outbreak, and so the actual guidebook follows that. So at the back you have coupons that are all designed inspired from this particular era, but translated to the zombie outbreak theme. The guidebook actually is really great to read, because when you read it, you are taken through the zombie apocalypse as if you're going through it yourself. So just for that already, worth a read. Here are the backs, which are not my favorite things, I will say. I don't enjoy decks that give the name of the decks on the back. Personal preference. I think if they had removed that, the title on it, I would have preferred it 10 times more, but we can live with it, right? It's superficial things. I'm not that petty, I can get over it. This is a zombie inspired deck. It's called a Zombie Tarot, and it's placing you in this 50s, 60s era where the zombie apocalypse happened. Already that concept is super interesting, because I feel like all of the zombie apocalypse books and movies are set up in much more modern times, so I'm find the juxtaposition of vintage looking images with super horror, grim, kind of gory looking things. Super cool. Like the Hierophant is this old style TV. I love it. It's very clever. Why is this underrated for me is, like I said, this deck comes out every year when it's Halloween. People are showing it in their Halloween decks, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's a perfect deck for that season. But I think honestly that this is a great deck for all year long, because you might think, oh, it's gimmicky, it is zombie theme, and it just looks a bit silly and you know, like a gimmick, but it's actually very, very deep. This would be a great deck if you're trying to do some shadow work, because you can look at the zombies as the shadow part of yourself, or as the part of yourself that are you're trying to look away from. And also you could look at the relationship between the human and the zombies, which are a little bit effed up because the way this is set up in this world is first the humans try and fight the zombies, like this Queen of Swords who is literally trying to bait them with the foot of someone else. Like, that is messed up, right? But also slightly brilliant. So at first they try to fight the zombies, and then they try to find a cure, obviously, and then when they don't find a cure, they decide to try and coexist and make the zombies their pets, or they're part of their family, but more like pets, which, when you think about it, the zombies being former human beings, ethically speaking, it's messed up. And so there is so much here to look into in terms of your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your relationship with the world, with like community, and with also the other. I find that the zombies can represent the other, like the stranger, the person you doesn't know in the street. How do you react when something external to you, when something unknown and maybe a little bit slightly or very threatening happens? How do you behave against that other as an archetype? And so I find this deck much deeper than it looks, and I think it's a fantastic one. There's so much to get into in each of the cards. It's really clever. It's also full of humor. It's very funny, but it's like that dark sarcasm, right? Look at this Lovers card. They both take each other something from each, they both take something from each other. He's getting love out of her, but she literally has stolen his heart, and the only way he can cope with kissing her is perfume, because her flesh is decomposing. So is that a representation of true love, or is that a representation of codependency? Or maybe it's harmony and balance. Maybe they both get something that they wanted, or did he get actually so entranced by her that he completely forgot he had his own heart to take care of? There's just a lot there to unpack. Look at this Three of Swords with a real human heart being eaten with actual cutlery. So they're not that savages, the zombies, if they use cutlery, right? Or is this used by another human? This is where it all gets a little bit blurry and interesting and confusing. I think this is a great one also if you're going through a little bit of a tough time, because if you can get over the gory kind of looking aesthetic, it will meet you where you are. Like, I've used this deck when I've been feeling really sick and I navigate through chronic illness, so I know sickness fairly well. And the fact that it's full of people who are dead, it's like it meets me where I am, and it brings humor to my situation. It reminds me to take things lightly. It reminds me to smile despite everything going to shit. And so I enjoyed it for that as well, for the ability it has to literally just meet you where you are. Okay, next up we have Dame's Fortune's Wheel Tarot. This is by Paul Hewson, and this is a Lo Scarabeo deck. This is for my lovers of decks that are historical looking, that are maybe more Marseille looking, or that are inspired by tarot history. This is definitely a good one that I would recommend. This also can be a great little study project, because this is actually a mix between Marseille deck, Eteia Tarot, and playing cards. So it's a very interesting combination of a lot of things. Paul Hewson did a great job. The Lo Scarabeo guidebook is very succinct as per usual, but you can get a separate proper bigger guidebook for this in paper form. You can get it on ebook version, and you can find free PDFs about this deck online. So there is something for every. If you want to spend the money on the book hardcover, you can. If you want to spend it on the Kindle version, you can. If you want to find free PDFs, you can. There's something for everyone. I got this deck because I have been doing this like Eteia study. You know, the Tarot Eteia, it's a very old French tarot game, probably the first tarot deck that was created with the idea of divination in mind. Everything before that was created for gaming, for playing cards. The Eteia Tarot was the very first deck that was created with a purpose of divination. And this inspires itself from that, as well as, like I was saying, Marseille deck and playing cards. So there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to go through here, and I love a good study project, so I have been enjoying it very much. This is why it's still in order, because I'm doing this like Eteia thing. But the majors are beautiful, and then the minors are color coordinated. So for example, for the pentacles, we have everything in green. For the cups, it's blue. The swords are in orange, and the wands or bâtons are in, what do you call that? Other kind of blue? Indigo? What is that color? It's still blue, right? I guess this is marine blue, and this is blue. I like that, the fact that it's color coordinated, because when you're doing a spread, it's easy to kind of notice when you have more of one card of the same suit. It's not purely pipish, like there are scenes on every single one of the cards, so that's really interesting. And the scenes again are inspired by the Eteia Tarot, so again that's very interesting. And the court card are actually inspired by playing card decks, and so you will notice that some of the names of the court card are some of the names that you might see in some older playing cards. Do you call them court cards in the playing cards, or faces? I don't know how you say it in English, but you know, in playing cards you still have queens and kings, etc., and sometimes in older decks they have names, and this reuses that for, you know, the queen of spade, the queen of diamond, the queen of hearts, etc. So there are links between those, the traditional cartomancy court cards and the court cards in here. And if you're looking for a study project, if you're interested in the Eteia Tarot, or if you're looking for a beautiful historical looking deck with a lot of personality, I would really recommend this one, because there's a lot to unpack there. I find the artwork really beautiful, really emotive. I love the colors, and I've been really enjoying getting to know it. And we have a significator card, which is actually really beautiful. and I like that. We don't see that often in modern decks. So we have 2 decks left. One of my favorite finds of this year, and this is a Julie at Peekaboo made me do it. We have the Tarot of the Sweet Twilight by Lo Scarabeo. When I say Julie made me do it, I would just mean that she literally just showed it on the channel and then I went and bought it. She didn't make me do anything. I was absolutely the one instigating it, but I have to thank Julie for showing it to us. We've been loving this deck ever since I got it this year. Tarot of the Sweet Twilight, the artwork is by Cristina Benintende and the guidebook is by Barbara Moore, who, if you are familiar with her writing, has done the guidebooks of many other mass market decks, and so this might be one of my favorite Lo Scarabeo guidebooks because it is not just keywords, it's actually sentences that relate to the artwork that was chosen for the cards, where you get a perspective, you get a personality through the meaning of the cards, you get interesting information. And so this, for a Lo Scarabeo guidebook, is actually one I would recommend to read. Here are the backs, and like I said, this is a recent acquisition. I've had it for like 5 or 6 months. This year, I got it this year. It has been out for a long time, like at least I'd say 7, 8, maybe 10 years, I'm not sure, but it's not new. It's been around for a while, and I feel like it is underrated, potentially because it's older. So I feel like when this first came out, there must have been a lot of love around it, and I had seen it a lot before Julie showed it. It's just that the way Julie talked about it, suddenly everything made sense and it made me understand the deck and want it. Before that, I had seen it talked about a long time ago. People seemed to enjoy it when it was first coming out, but I feel like after that it had a little bit of a maybe lower phase where not that many people were showing it. Definitely I never see it used in readings, and I feel like that's a shame because this deck has a lot to offer, especially if you're looking for an intuitive read. This deck will absolutely spark your intuition because it doesn't follow traditional image. It does its own thing very much, so there's a lot there to unpack. A lot of the cards are very different to what we're used to. The Six of Wands is normally the card of victory, happiness and success, and here we're seeing someone cry over a jack-in-a-box. So as you can see, the deck does its own thing. The deck doesn't follow traditional imagery. The deck has its own mood, it has its own energy. There's so much to get into in those cards, and there's so much intuitively that you can get into that will change the way you look at tarot in general. And why I have been loving this deck so much ever since I got it is because it's turned on its head a lot of the thoughts I had about some cards. It's expanded my tarot knowledge, it's expanded my vision of the cards. Sometimes it's made me ponder and feel like I don't know what's going on. It's challenged me sometimes, but mostly it is very intuitive, and it's allowed my readings to be very much free-flowing and less confined at the meanings I think I know, and let the image speak and let that kind of be the first lead of the reading, and then on top of that add my pre-existing knowledge of tarot. So it's been very freeing experience. It is very unique, very different. It's set up in this strange world. Obviously it is the Sweet Twilight, so everything is in that in-between transition phase between night and day. If you want to do some dream work, if you want to do automatic writing, if you want to do some journaling or anything like that, there's a lot there to get into. There's a lot of the cards that have helped me, like I was saying, look at the cards a different way, and I don't feel like this is necessarily underrated in the tarot tube world. Like I said, there's definitely people who show it, talk about it, and love this deck in terms of tarot readings and social media, etc. And the fact that I've not seen it talked about much, I wanted to bring it back out and share the love for it. Can we agree that this is the best strength card ever? The fact that they have a baby Yoda, little Grogu, years before Grogu was even a thing. I'm obsessed. Okay, last deck, mass market. We have the Vox Arcana Tarot by Lo Scarabeo. So this is a collective artwork tarot deck, meaning that there was as many artists that contributed than there are cards in the deck. There are extra cards for the elements. Like I was saying, we get 2 extra cards for this deck. We get the element card and they are the only two cards that are reversible. So normally I am not a fan of decks that have artwork from different people. I really actually don't like it. I've tried it a few times and it doesn't work for me. This is the exception that confirms the rules. That's what we say in French. I don't know if you have that saying in English, but that one thing that makes that rule true is this is the only collective artwork deck that has worked for me. I am loving it so much, and it is beautiful. I never really see this deck, and so this one is one that is hugely underrated. I very rarely see this deck talked about. The only person I've seen talk about this deck is Marvin over at Mystic Marvin on Instagram and YouTube. When this deck came out, I feel like it didn't make much noise, and I think it's because of that collective artwork vibe. But let me tell you, every single artwork piece still has an interesting side, because this is the Vox Arcana Tarot. And so the Vox Arcana means the voice of tarot. In the that's how they kind of like decided to play it. And they've decided to think about every artist contributing to a piece of art as a concerto, like an orchestra, where every card by a different artist is like someone playing a different instrument, and everyone together coming together creates this beautiful orchestra. So this is why it's called the Vox Arcana, because it's drawing on this orchestra idea, and the way the guidebook is written is actually fantastic. Another one of, I think, my favorite guidebooks for Los Scarabeo decks. Definitely worth a read. The artists are credited, of course, which we love. The guidebook is written as if every card is part of a piece of that concert, of that orchestra, which is super interesting. They explain the artistic choices, so sometimes when you look at a card and you're like, I don't understand why they depicted the card this way, it will give you a little bit of information. And to make it even cooler, a lot of the artists decided to choose a song that would go with each of the cards, and so in the guidebook you have a song that you can listen to that represents, according to the artist, for example, the Knight of Pentacles or the King of Swords, and I find that super cool. I love associating songs to my card, so that was another really interesting piece. I understand that some people feel put off by collective decks, but honestly I feel like this one is very cohesive. Like a lot of the cards, even though they're made by different artists and they have different art style, everything is very set up in this kind of fantasy world. So for me it works. Again, this is going to be subjective, not everyone is going to agree, but you get an idea here of everything put together. For the majority of it, I've used this in spread and with oracle decks and everything, and I feel like it works. It does feel like an orchestra with lots of different instruments coming together to create one meaning. So this is massively underrated, I think. Unfortunately, I feel like it deserves more love. There is one card, I need to show it, that is peculiar. But even that one I've grown to enjoy. It's just when I saw it first, I was like, I stopped dead in my tracks and oh, there we go. Look at that. Six of Pentacles. That was the one card I was like, oh, what is going on here? But when you read the guidebook, you realize that their version of the Six of Pentacles is actually someone enticing you with a deal that is potentially not as good as it seems. So the idea of not everything that is gold, not everything that shimmers is gold, that idea. So you're being enticed towards something, but be careful, because this fae probably is hiding her true intention. And so even though it's a little bit too much for me personally, now that I understand the artist's intent from reading the guidebook, I get it, and it doesn't bother me as much. And actually, when I have pulled this card, it's made me laugh, like, come on. It's funny. So this is why I'm saying the guidebook is actually really interesting, because you do understand the intent for a lot of the artwork, and for me intent is super important. Like, you can want to make beautiful artwork, but if there's no intent behind it, it won't read well. I think that, again, personal opinion, but that's what I found. So my friends, this is it. This is the end of my underrated tarot decks mass market part 2. I hope you enjoyed seeing those decks that are maybe less shown. I hope you found some hidden gems that maybe you didn't know about, or maybe you're rediscovering decks you've put to the side and it's giving you the inspiration to pick them back up again. Let me know your underrated decks. Like for you, what are the underrated mass market tarot decks that you feel needs more love, that you feel people don't talk about enough, that you feel have gone under the radar? And until my next video, as per usual, I am sending you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!